Whether you drive a car,
need a car,
or just occasionally bum a ride with friends,
you've come to the right place.
Join Jill and Tom as they break down everything that's going on in the auto world.
New car reviews,
Shopping tips,
driving green,
electric cars,
classic cars,
and plenty of great guests.
This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, this is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast. I am Tom Appel. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. When you get a chance, do me a huge favor. Check us out at consumerguide.com. If you are looking for a new car or truck, check out our 2024 Best Buy picks. But more importantly, you can stream the podcast and back episodes of the podcast right there on our homepage, though it's probably better if you subscribe, right? Better if they subscribe?
Always better.
Yeah, all right. That voice is Jill Ciminillo. She is the, chief microbiologist at Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. She's a North American Car of the Year juror and a freelancer.
Yes.
Freelancer.
Yes.
Jill, in front of you are different donuts.
Yes.
This is a variety of different donuts, none filled.
None are filled, but I have to say, so one is pink and has sprinkles on it. I feel like the last time you got that donut, I broke out in hives.
I don't know what about pink would make you break out.
The red dye. I have a weird allergy to dyes occasionally.
What was the death M&M? It was red dye number?
Probably, I don't know.
Oh.
Something.
Yeah.
But
they deal with it in, not Back to the Future. Peggy Sue got married? I can't remember.
Could be.
No, Back to the Future.
Right.
They deal with the red M&Ms.
Yeah.
All right. How are you?
Okay.
We have lots and lots and lots of news today, and it's all kind of a big deal.
Okay.
So first, this isn't big news, but I just want to cover it because I think you're on it.
Okay.
My friend Bob's daughter Celine, who listens to the podcast regularly, wants us to talk about the sounds that EVs make. Okay. And we're sort of dealing with that, right? Are we fishing around for somebody?
I can.
I thought we were.
What I would say is go to my TikTok. I actually usually post all of the sounds that EVs make. Whenever I drive an EV, I capture that sound.
But we need to get into why they do that.
Yeah, okay.
To what extent the law requires that.
Yeah.
And what kind of fun you can have with those noises. Because one of the sounds I've suggested is herd of buffalo, which would certainly catch people's attention at an intersection.
Okay. Well, I know, I remember going through a deep dive on the Mustang Mach-E sounds, and a lot of them were very I can't even remember the name of the movie, but very futuristic movie sounds that were inspired by stuff like that. I don't know, but yeah, they all kind of sound the same to me.
Kind of.
I mean, although the Hyundai Kia vehicles kind of have it sounds like an angel. It's like, ah.
Yeah, I know that sound. And if you drive through drive-thrus a lot, I was just at McDonald's for iced tea. You hear that sound a lot.
Yeah.
And it bounces off the wall, so you definitely hear it.
You know what I find weird about these sounds? They very often come from the back of the vehicle only.
I don't know where the sound generator is. I don't know where the speaker is.
It's in the back. And so,
that might be
which makes
safer.
sense. No, if the vehicle's traveling forward, you kind of want the sound to be coming from the front of the vehicle. I will say I was recently, I had the opportunity to do a quick test drive of the Acura ZDX, which is the new all-electric vehicle from Acura. And if it was in reverse, it came from the back. But when it went into drive, it moved to the front.
Interesting.
So I thought, I definitely thought that was interesting. I think that's how it should be. But a lot of them just come from the back.
For people who don't know what we're talking about, because we did make a little leap here.
We did.
Electric vehicles make no noise at idle because there is no idle. There's no motor making noise.
Correct.
And there isn't that much rolling noise, not enough rolling noise. So for people who might be vision impaired or just not paying attention.
Like everybody with a cell phone who crosses a street.
Exactly. Electric vehicles make some noise so people know that they're coming.
They legally have to do that. And I believe that it's at less than 18 miles per hour. Hybrids, plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles have to make an exterior noise under that speed.
Yeah, because hybrids will run on electric power only. Some will. Most will. Same situation. So there you have that. Celine, we're working on it. I thought we were working on a guest for that.
No.
Oh, never mind.
I mean, if you send it to me, I have not seen it.
All right. We will be working on that.
I don't even know who you would contact about that.
This was a bad week to be a Nissan sedan or a Jaguar anything. Yeah, things are being sliced from lineups, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
We can talk about the Jaguar thing first because we all knew this was coming.
Yeah, we did.
But Jaguar's basically killed every Jaguar.
Womp womp.
Yeah, they killed the E-Type, which comes as a convertible and a coupe. Fantastic car.
The F-Type, you mean?
The F-Type, what did I say?
E-Type.
Oh, E-Type would have been a much older Jaguar.
I know, I was like, wait a minute, this is something I am not familiar with.
A much older and actually stunningly beautiful car. No, F-Type, yes. The I-Pace, ironically, it's only electric vehicle that they're killing until they bring in electric vehicles.
Yeah, which, by the way, Waymo uses a lot of I-Pace vehicles as their robotaxis.
Because no one else is using them.
I liked the I-Pace.
I had one I-Pace ever.
Okay.
We had it at the office, and it wouldn't take a charge, and it was flatbedded away. That was my test of the I-Pace.
So tell me how you feel about it.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Okay.
I drove it home once. The E-Pace going away, that's their subcompact crossover. The F-Pace lingers for a while. That's the only car selling there in volume. That's their compact crossover. It's a nice car.
It is.
It's getting old. And I was just reminded of something weird that happened at Jaguar.
Okay.
And it's kind of what hurt them. One of the things that hurt them.
Okay.
Do you remember when Jaguar rolled out its new vehicles and started bringing in these crossovers, the Pace line of vehicles, their premium engines were what?
Say it again.
What were their premium engines?
The SVR or?
No, diesels.
Oh, yeah.
They committed heavily to diesel at exactly the time that Volkswagen made us hate diesels.
Yeah.
So that went very badly. There's no diesels left in the U.S., really, unless you want a Silverado or one of GM's big SUVs.
Yeah, the big trucks or the big SUVs.
Yeah.
So I think Escalade, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, those are all still available with.
And that's a great six, too.
Yeah.
So that's it for Jaguar. Jaguar is supposed to be bringing in for 2026 its first all-electric vehicle, except it has one now that it's killing.
Its second all-electric vehicle, right?
Yeah, but of its new architecture.
Okay, got it.
But yes, the
so I
irony
feel like
is,
we should be doing like dun 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 dun. Yeah.
I don't know because here's the thing about this. I don't think Jaguar has the name recognition anymore in the U.S. to sell cars. They've let the name wither. There's no one. What's a Jaguar anymore?
Jaguar.
Regardless of how you pronounce it, I don't think there's a market there anymore.
You know what? So Jaguar has always had a bit of a tenuous history, I'm going to say, in the United States, and most of it has been related to reliability. Because my parents would always tell me about when I first started writing about cars, and I'd tell them, "Oh yeah, I'm driving a Jag today," and they're like, "Oh, you know the old joke about a Jag, right?" And I'm like, "What's the old joke?" "Well, you had to have two, one because one was always in the garage, so a Jag and a spare." And I was like, "Oh."
But the thing about that's true. The reliability was a huge issue.
And
but in the 70s and in the 80s, I don't know if it's still a huge issue with them, but it could be. I think they're still at the bottom of the list. But in the 70s and the 80s, Jaguars were beloved despite the fact they were unreliable. They were beautiful. They were high performance. They were unbelievably well crafted. The cabins were incredible. And the inline six was legendary. I mean, there were reasons to love the car. Yeah. And the reliability problems almost made them charming. It was a very weird period of time, but that all went away. Ford took over the company. The cars kind of got sterile. They did become more reliable, but far less interesting as Jaguars. They didn't look like Jaguars anymore.
No.
And they just had a very, very bad time making the move from sedans and coupes to crossovers. And being sold in a showroom full of better-looking crossovers is a problem because they are paired with Land Rover, Range Rover. Right. Very attractive vehicles. Yes. Also not especially reliable.
I know, I was going to say, but also there's this reliability thing. Yeah. No, that's unfortunate. I mean, one of the very first test cars I had was a Jaguar XJ.
6, probably. I think it was just called XJ at the time because it was a V8.
And it was one of the most, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It had a wood steering wheel. And I remember my first exposure to a heated steering wheel, and I turned it on. I didn't realize that's what I was turning on. I didn't know what that was. This is way back in 2003. And so all of a sudden my fingers started to tingle and get warm. And I thought I had some dread disease or something because my hands were all of a sudden heating up and I couldn't figure out why. Yeah.
I don't remember them having electric steering wheels, but I remember the wood steering wheels. Beautiful
Yeah.
cabins. And that was
Yeah.
a Jaguar thing, was a beautiful cabin. But people lost interest in those cars because they weren't super interesting looking from the outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what's going on at Jaguar. The thing about it is they can drag this on forever because the dealerships are all paired for Land Rover, Range Rover.
Right.
And those dealerships, those cars are selling okay.
Yeah.
So this may take forever.
Yeah.
Forever. All right, Iona.
Didn't you have another? You wanted to talk about Nissan.
Did we not cover Nissan?
We did not cover Nissan.
Nissan sells 3 sedans. In 2 years, they're going to be down to 1.
And it's the one that I thought they were going to kill off.
The Sentra?
Well, they're keeping the Sentra? Oh, I thought
Sentra's-
they were getting rid of the Sentra and the Altima.
They're keeping the Sentra
Okay.
indefinitely.
Okay.
We don't know when that's going away. But the Versa, the most affordable, likable
The one that
little-
I liked the
Yeah,
most.
goes first.
Okay.
At the end of 2025. And then the Altima,
Yeah.
which has been a part of the American landscape, selling in really serious volume for a long time, goes away at the end of 2026.
Yeah.
So they're down to 1 sedan. That'll be the Sentra, which will be competing with the Corolla and the Civic.
When did they get rid of the Maxima?
Last year.
Okay.
And there was like no news about it.
No.
I don't remember knowing that they got rid of it. I just knew they were going to.
Yeah, Nissan is funny that way. They actually don't, like when they do something kind of big like that, they don't usually share. So I'm kind of surprised that we know that these 2 sedans are going away.
The Maxima history is interesting because Maxima has been sort of a weird outcast vehicle for a long time. Into the 90s, into the 2000s, Maxima was a V6 midsize sedan before there were V6 midsize sedans. So it was this cool high-performance car. You could get it with a manual transmission. I owned one. I loved it. But when the Altima started getting a V6, the Maxima kind of became superfluous. Like,
Yeah.
well, they've already got a midsize sedan. And from then on, the Maxima just sort of started to lose
Yeah.
popularity.
Yeah.
I was
now,
going to
Iona.
say Iona.
Yeah.
Did you hear the news?
I don't know that I did.
So Iona is this charging network being developed by manufacturers
Yes.
that the world really needs because we need people who care about this thing working. So BMW, Mercedes, General Motors, Stellantis, Hyundai, Kia, and Honda already in Iona.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Then yes, I did hear this news.
Toyota just
Yes.
jumped in. So here's the deal about that. We talked about Nevi. You weren't here that week with
Larry.
with Larry Knudsen. $5 billion going into charging network there. Iona, $7.5 billion.
Yeah.
So 50% more money from people who really, really care about it working.
Yeah. Because I mean, if the charging network doesn't work, then people like me are going to get cranky and, tell everybody that unless you're, going to be charging at home all the time, like don't buy an EV.
Yeah, I think Electrify America blocked me on Twitter for that reason. But Iona is promising 30,000 charge ports. So that's just charging units, not
chargers, charging
or
stations.
Not stations, correct, by 2030.
Okay.
So here's to that going well.
So
First one's
6
going in-
years from now, we should be in a much different situation.
But first ones are going in this year.
Okay.
So it's starting.
Okay.
$7.5 billion. Real quick, this isn't going to surprise you. Vinfast was going to build a plant in North Carolina. They're delaying that. Partially because they only sold 900 vehicles here so far.
Have you read any of the reviews of their vehicles?
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah.
They're flat out terrible.
Yeah.
This is a company that was well funded and like, oh, we can do this. We can build an electric car.
We can build an electric car tomorrow.
Just spent a lot of money. Didn't think about network. Didn't think about reliability. Didn't think about, we're selling electric cars now. And it's like a little bit harder than that.
Well, what I find really...
Ask Tesla. It's a little bit harder than that.
Yeah. What I find very interesting is they, VinFast took over 3 waves of journalists, 3 different times to Vietnam.
To Vietnam.
And gave them 5-star treatment and tourism, took them out and showed them things, and the reviews still came back negative. So I find it very interesting because a lot of people talk about the automotive industry being bought and paid for because, somebody's going to take you to this glamorous place and do, all of these amazing things and pay for your food and your hotel and your airfare. So you're only going to write happy things. Well, nope, that's not true. If the vehicle is bad, we're going to tell you.
Yeah, and I guess it's pretty... I haven't driven one.
Neither have I.
But I guess it's pretty bad.
I was not one of those journalists that they took over.
We got the invitation, and then we couldn't do it. And Damon was thinking about going, but we couldn't make it happen. And Damon really wanted to go to Vietnam.
Right.
Which would have been cool. But
yeah.
There you have it. VinFast delaying the plant till at least 2028, but I don't think they're going to build a plant because they're just deciding now whether they want a dealer network in the U.S. So
I've
it's
been
kind of a mess.
To malls in California where I see their Tesla like storefront, and I remember walking past and I was like, "Oh, that's a VinFast storefront," and like there's 4 guys who work for VinFast sitting in there, and they see us pause, and they all run out. And they're like, come in. And we're like, no, thank you. No.
Also, for some reason, their vehicle is woefully overpriced. The first one is the VF9, and I think it starts at $80K. And then they were trying to do a thing where they were going to lease the battery. And I'm like,
and then you just buy
people.
the car, and then you just swap out the battery whenever you want.
Yeah,
it was very strange.
Terrible idea. Americans don't want more complication.
I mean, yes, but no, because people were concerned about batteries. So they're like, all right, let's take the battery out of the equation.
By the time VinFast was on the scene, Americans had pretty much ruled out battery swapping or battery leasing.
Yeah, but I'm just saying people are concerned about batteries dying and it costing $30,000 or $40,000 to replace. And so, on paper, the idea of swapping out a battery and not having to be concerned about it isn't a horrible idea, but it's confusing.
Making a separate payment that's
that is stupid.
That's weird. And then you have to remember things about your battery.
Yeah.
Then when you sell the vehicle, what do?
You sell them your lease on the battery. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was not a well thought out. I mean, it was an interesting idea with a very bad execution. Yeah. That's what I'm going to say.
Anyway, you recently drove it here, I believe.
No, I did not.
Oh, it's a different Acura.
It is.
But you drove the Acura MDX, which was freshened for 2025.
Yes. I'm living the Acura life right now.
And the biggest deal here is that the infotainment system and the connectivity interface no longer sucks.
It does not suck. So what's really funny is I posted a video to my YouTube channel. So I did a full written review for the drive. And then did a video for my own personal YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, I've gotten a few comments where people are like, but I like the touchpad. And I'm like, you are a party of one or maybe 2.
Well, it's also an owner who got used to it.
It could be, but like, I don't know. I was driving the Acura MDX in California, and it now has a touchscreen. They've done away with I think they were calling it the True Touch pad, where you have this pad on like underneath the gear shift, and you put your fingers, like if you're trying to touch something in the upper right quadrant of your screen, you touch the upper right quadrant of the touchpad. So it's not a swipe or a slide. It's you touch on the pad where you want to be touching on the screen.
And it was in 2 parts. The touchpad. There was a left and a right part of that.
Yeah, because and it's one of those. So I just got the TLX today.
It was incredibly confusing,
and it has this horrible True Touchpad. And
so the TLX
I can't figure it out.
Is their midsize sedan.
Yes.
Which really needs an update.
Yeah, so I'm hoping by the end of the week we'll have to talk about the TLX maybe next week or the following week because we'll see if I can get used to this thing again.
But joy to drive.
It is very, very joyful, and I have the Type S trim. But back to the MDX. So they got rid of the I called it the dastardly True Touch interface in the MDX, and they now have a Google built-in operating system, which is as somebody commented, they're like, how is that different than Android Automotive? It's not. Android Automotive operating system is the same as Google built-in. It's just a fluffy, happy marketing term. And so...
Which, just to piss off editors, it's Google built-in, lowercase built, lowercase n.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Why make copy editors' life even harder?
Oh, because that's the joy. That's the joy of automakers, with all their fluffy TMs, trademarks, and copyrights and things like that we have to remove. So Google built in, but what they've done is you have this Google Assistant, Google Play, Google Maps system that has a 3-year free trial, and then you also have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So you have the Google built-in plus Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and the Google built-in will, after 3 years, become a subscription. We've had this conversation a lot lately, and what that means is your maps will no longer update, your real-time traffic will no longer be there if you don't opt to pay the subscription fee. And I asked Acura what the subscription fee would be after 3 years, and they're like, I don't know. I'm like, wait, What?
They haven't thought about it.
They haven't thought about it. Well, 3 years is really far away. And I'm like, actually, it's not. I've been married for 10 years now, and it feels like it's just been a year.
Yeah. So the MDX, this is their midsize crossover, competes with the GV80 from Genesis, the X5 from BMW, the RX from Lexus.
No. So I asked them who their competitive set were, and they literally said the Audi, was it Q5, the BMW X5, and the... I don't think they gave me a Mercedes. But those were the two they said were their direct competitors.
Okay.
And then I said, well, what about Infiniti, QX60? And they said, well, yeah, I suppose that is. And then I brought up the Genesis GV80, and they said no, because the interior volume of the GV80 is much smaller.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, because I would have...
I never think of the MDX as large.
No, and I would have put it up against the GV80, and they flat out said no.
So the good news here is there's still a V6. They have not gone to a 2-liter turbo. No. So the base engine is a nice, torquey, smooth V6. And then they brought back the 3-liter twin turbo for the S-Type.
Yes.
So that's nice.
Or Type S, I think.
Type S, thank you. Yes. And then they kind of just smoothed off the outside.
Yeah. So the grill on the outside is going to be the biggest difference that you notice, because for the the A-Spec and the Type S, which are the top two trims, they made it frameless, and so there's no like chromy outline on the grill. It just goes from body color paint
sort
straight
of what
into the
Lexus
grill.
has been doing with stuff.
Yeah, and to me, I think it looks really attractive. I think it's really well done, and the Type S grill pattern is really wicked cool. So I don't know. I mean, they just crispined up the design, I guess I would say, on the exterior. Then they've changed the...
It looks more modern.
Yeah. They've changed the interior with brought the screen forward, gave the wireless charger a little bit more of prominent placement, took away the touchpad. That kind
we
of
are
stuff.
now at that point where, with freshenings and updates, the wireless charging is going to be better integrated.
Yes,
because it became popular before people were ready to incorporate it in the cars. So a lot of them sucked. They were in bad places, and the thing would slide off of the charger. It didn't work right. So now the integration is coming, which is what we saw with touchscreens a generation ago. There were so many bad touchscreen integrations.
Oh, yes. And I do want to say the wireless charger in the MDX worked okay. It heated up my phone a little bit. So I have one of my famous, long-running Jill rants is wireless chargers, and because they never work, or if they work, they overheat your phone and whatever. But I want to say in the MDX, they actually did a good job of not completely overheating your phone. It heats it up, but it doesn't. I had my phone in the slot for like 3 hours, and it didn't shut down my phone or shut down the system.
Base price is up only slightly from $51,500 to $52,250, so prices are in line with last year. Mm-hmm. And just a quick note: this is Acura's best-selling vehicle by far.
Yeah.
So this is an important update.
Yeah.
All right. We didn't talk about this before, but after the break, we're going to talk to Patrick Masterson of Cars.com about their American-made index.
Yes, I love this index.
Yeah, I love this. And it's always one of our most popular episodes.
Yes.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. This is the Car Stuff Podcast. I'm Tom. She's Jill. Thank you for joining us today. Jill,
yes.
Throw me a bone here.
Hey, Tom. Are you on X Twitter?
I am.
Ha-ha.
Thanks for asking.
You are so welcome.
Car Guy Tom on Twitter, #CarSpotter for the fun stuff I go and look for. I found something kind of cool, kind of weird over the weekend. Mm-hmm. It was a very old Toyota pickup truck that had been converted to a camper. You don't normally see very small pickups with a camper body on the back of them, but this was one. Kind of cool looking.
Okay.
CarSpotter # gets you there.
Gets you there.
All right, that's all I have to say about that. The American-made index,
yes.
Cars.com, we've talked about. This is probably our fourth visit to talk about that.
Yeah.
We missed 1 year because of our hiatus.
Yeah.
But it's back. It's one of our most popular episodes. But here's the crazy thing about the American-made index. You cannot guess what's on it. Unless you were listening last year, because the index hasn't changed that much, you're stunned by the vehicles on here.
Yeah.
But to talk to us about that today is Patrick Masterson of Cars.com. He is senior editor at Cars.com. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
We're good. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing this news with us. Tell us about the American-Made Index and why you guys do it.
Yeah, great question. So broad overview, Cars.com's American-Made Index is an independent annual ranking of available current year models with the most significant impact on the U.S. economy. We analyzed 5 factors, and at the end of the day, this year at least, we got 100 vehicles. But as you rightly point out, it changes every year. And the takeaway, the reason we do it, is to show that the badge on the hood may not necessarily be indicative of how much your vehicle contributes to the U.S. economy.
And I'm not being snarky now when I ask this question every year. Who cares? Who is it that looks at this list and is moved to do something about it?
Yeah, great. That's a totally valid question. And the answer is that shoppers care. So Cars.com did a survey, and more than half, what we found was that more than half of in-market car shoppers that we surveyed were willing to pay more for a vehicle if it creates more U.S. jobs.
Really?
And from there, nearly 60% were willing to pay at least 10% more, over their planned budget, if it kept jobs in the U.S. So the point is that people care about this stuff. They want their money to stay close. If it can affect their local economy more, then they're going to take that into consideration when they go out to a dealership.
So if you're an American consumer and you think, I want to buy an American car and I want to do the most for the local economy, you're thinking, maybe I should buy a Chevy or a Ford. But your list suggests that may not be the case.
That is indeed the case. Yeah. So the way we look at this is through the 5 factors. I'll go ahead and break those out.
Please
here.
do.
So one of them is location of final assembly. Obviously, that's the most important one. If it's not built here, it doesn't qualify. Another is a percentage of U.S. and Canadian parts as deemed by the American Automobile Labeling Act. Another is country of origin for both available engines and available transmissions. And then the 5th component is U.S. manufacturing employees relative to the automaker's footprint. So that's a way of factoring in those who are contributing directly to the manufacturing of the vehicle.
Why not Mexico?
That is a great question for those who have created the legislation. So this is, I think, a byproduct of NAFTA. Originally, the AALA was created in 1994. And yes, to your point, that is a question that the legislation leaves unanswered. Also, why combining U.S. and Canadian parts and not separating that out is another perfectly valid question, which is why we have the other 4 components to sort of balance that out and dig a little bit deeper.
So you are the keeper of this list, Patrick, and so you really dig into the data, and I want to know what your biggest surprise this year was on the list.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest surprise far and away was the Ram 1500 Classic. This is the old generation that they've rebadged. And what shocked me was that it jumped as much as it did. So last year, it was, for 2023, it ranked number 87. This year, it was number 19, cracked the top 20. Yeah, which is shocking to me, and the reason for that is because production shifted entirely to Warren, Michigan. So last year, there was a percentage of 1500 Classics that were made in Mexico. This year, if you're buying a model year 24 Ram 1500 Classic, all of them are coming from Michigan.
Patrick, this isn't your problem, but I just want to throw it out there. I'm sick of the Ram Classic. It confuses me. I forget to talk about it when I review Rams. And for people who don't know, this is a previous generation Ram still being built that gives Ram this price leader in the showroom. It's actually a great thing for consumers, really confusing for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not aware of Ram's strategy with the marketing on that. And then, by the way, Ram is not the only one. Chevrolet and GMC have done this too with the Silverado 1500 Limited, and Sierra has a variant of that as well. So who that's targeted to is a whole question that's beyond the scope of the index, but I hear you. It can be a little confusing.
Well, and Patrick, you and I talked a little bit offline when this study first came out, because I was writing a story about specifically pickup trucks and how American your pickup truck is. And, you kind of brought this up with the Ram 1500 Classic, where you said the production shifted. And I would say one of my biggest surprises about this was the Silverado and Sierra. And they fall pretty far down on the list, and part of that is because some of the production happens in Mexico.
Right, and in fact, even between the Sierra and the Silverado, this is a perfect example that illustrates why we do this index. With the Sierra, you could have a truck that's made either in Roanoke, Indiana, or in Silao, Mexico. But with the Silverado, production also, there are some of those trucks that come from Oshawa, Ontario. So you could be getting your Silverado from one of 3 different locations and a Sierra from one of 2. So that's going to affect where where the vehicle ends on the list. And it's a good reason why we dig into it.
You know, just personally, I don't mind giving Canadians a few jobs. I'm okay with it. Patrick, can you do us a favor and start walking us through the list of the most American vehicles?
Sure. So right at the top, once again this year, is the Tesla Model Y. That's been the case since 2022. And Teslas have featured prominently since we've sort of redid the methodology for 2020. So it's no surprise to see that up there, frankly, with not just the fact that they're all assembled in Austin, Texas, and Fremont, California, but also because they have a really high domestic parts content. That percentage is crucial, and this year the Model Y had 70% across all variants. When we first started doing the AMI in 2006, one of the requirements was that a vehicle have 75% domestic parts content. There were only 2 vehicles that would have made that this year. One was the Honda Passport. That came in number 2. And then there was a variant of the Tesla Model 3. The Performance specifically had 75%, but 2 other versions, 2 trim levels, kind of affected it, and that's why it dropped down a little bit this year.
Patrick, I have 2 questions for you here about the Model Y real quick.
Sure.
Do we figure the battery into this equation? And then are we exporting? Do you know if they export Model Ys from the U.S., from Fremont, or from Texas?
So both are good questions. As far as the battery goes, yes, it is factored into the overall parts content percentage. That's part of that. That's the overall vehicle. The nomenclature in terms of how electric vehicles specifically are being judged is changing. The government's a little bit behind. If you look at a window sticker, which, by the way, you can do for any vehicle that hasn't been sold on a dealership lot, and it's one of the reasons I go out to these, to go and actually confirm the vehicle as it sits for shoppers. The AALA breaks it down by engine and transmission. We know that EVs don't have either of those things.
Right.
So the way that they do it is currently being left up to the automakers in terms of how they present that information. They still have to. Ultimately, it looks like engine and transmission. It's the same place on the window sticker as it would be for an internal combustion engine vehicle. But how that language is shifting is slowly changing. With Tesla specifically, you're looking at motor and drive unit is how they break that down, and I suspect that other automakers will follow suit.
Interesting to me, too, we mentioned the Model Y. The Model 3 is not in the top 10. How are they so different, the Model 3 being the small sedan from Tesla?
That's right. Yes. So the Model 3 this year took a little bit of a hit, actually. Last year, it was a sweep right at the top for Tesla.
I remember that.
Their models. Yep. This year, not the case. So what happened was with the standard and long-range variants, those content percentages dropped significantly. So they were down to 40 and 35%. That affected that particular score. And it's why the Model 3 drives tight. We don't show the raw figures because, frankly, I don't want the spreadsheet it's not worth it. It's worth the trouble to look at. But in terms of how those vehicles are bunched, it's all pretty close ultimately. So something like that you take even one trim level, that you drop that parts content percentage, or you maybe move a variant motor production somewhere else. That's gonna affect it on the ranking quite significantly.
I don't want to take this conversation too far into the weeds, but I thought in the case of the Model 3, they started using Chinese batteries on some of the entry-level models. Is that something that rings true?
So that may be what contributes to the overall parts content percentage. Okay. The batteries themselves aren't yet broken out. Now, the legislation on that, I'm glad you brought that up, is still being finessed. We haven't gotten the final documentation from the government in terms of what they need to show in terms of critical minerals and stuff that's more in the weeds with batteries, that's not fully formed yet, and it hasn't been passed in the House and the Senate. So we're kind of in a limbo, and that's how I would describe 2024 overall, in fact, especially when it comes to EVs, is that, we've been talking a lot about this in the automotive press in particular, and it's very exciting to talk about. But in terms of what's actually out on dealerships, we're only slowly starting to see that change. The ID4 is a good example of that. When they first started making it, Volkswagen was making all of those ID4s in Germany. But then they moved that production to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and as a result, last year it was number 6, this year it's number 3.
Wow.
So one of the other interesting things that I think about this is the vehicles that are missing from the list. So the Tesla Cybertruck and the Rivian R1S, R1T are not on the list anywhere. And then we also don't see the Toyota Tacoma or the Ford Ranger on there. And so, and I'm sure there are others that people might expect to see on the AMI that aren't there. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why something, like the Cybertruck, which is an American vehicle, or, the Ford Ranger, would not be on the American Index list.
Absolutely. So the reason that the Cybertruck specifically and the Rivian too, and actually this goes for all heavy-duty trucks which are missing from the list, none of those trucks are they're exempt from AALA requirements. That is to say, they don't require a window sticker that contains the information that breaks out engine and transmission location of assembly. Yeah, anything that's over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight rating is exempted from that. So, though some automakers may make that effort to put those in, we made the decision a long time ago, before I was in charge of the AMI, to exempt those vehicles as a class. So you're never going to see a Mercedes Sprinter on there. You're never going to see a Ram 2500.
Right.
And you're not going to see a Cybertruck. Rivian is definitely something I expect to get questions for that. But with the R2 and the R3 coming, I think in future years, I would not be surprised if they made the list.
All right, Patrick, we asked you to go through the list, and then we stopped you at the first car. As we run out of time, can you walk us through the rest of the list?
Sure. Sorry, I'm getting in my own way.
No. It was my fault entirely. My fault entirely, sir.
So let's finish this out. So the Honda Passport was number 2.
Okay.
The Volkswagen ID4 was number 3. The Tesla Model S was number 4. Honda's Odyssey and Ridgeline were numbers 5 and 6. The Toyota Camry was number 7. The Jeep Gladiator was number 8.
And that's the first American brand vehicle on the list.
You could argue it's not, because
Tesla.
Tesla,
of course, is Dutch, and also that, yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, I interrupted you again.
That's okay, that's all right. The Model X from Tesla was number 9, and rounding out the top 10, brand new vehicle, the Lexus TX.
Excellent. So you're right. What is American now is very confusing, because I never think of Tesla as American, but it's very American.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 factories here, huge production
Actually,
capacity.
Headquarters in Austin. Yeah. They do every Tesla you buy in the U.S. And I actually, when I started my research in April, I wasn't sure that this was the case, because I had seen that there were Chinese imported Model 3s, but it turns out those were all going to Canada. So if you're buying a Tesla that's a model year 24, it's all made in the U.S. That was a surprise to me, too.
Interesting. Is there a most American factory? I guess it's the Honda Alabama plant, or either of the Tesla plants.
Well, that would be a different index.
Sure.
I mean, as far as output goes, there are a lot of plants that make vehicles that only go to American consumers, not to say U.S. consumers. But that's beyond the scope of what I do. I'm focusing more on the nameplate. So, yeah, that would be a separate index.
Understand completely. Patrick, we only scratched the surface of this. Where can people go for more stuff, more information about the American-made index? And we will link to that.
Yes. So the easiest way to find the story, the full results, is cars.com/AMI.
Excellent. Patrick, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, have a good week. That was Patrick Masterson of Cars.com. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it's quiz time. Stick around.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast. We were talking about American-made cars.
Yes.
And the line does blur.
It is so blurry. Like, every year I look at this index and I'm like, what do you mean the Honda Ridgeline is the most American truck?
There's a lot here, and I understand entirely if you were steered by this to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
That's just patriotic and good sense. Although buying something like a Mexican-built Chevy, not doing as much for the U.S. economy because you're not using American labor, still good for the local economy. You're still keeping it in the old NAFTA zone.
Yeah. Well, and there are just so many layers to this this index. And, so like looking at the Silverado Sierra thing, Patrick and I, we had this like in the weeds conversation about, all right, so I'm going to buy a Sierra or Silverado. How do I know this was built in Indiana and not in Mexico or Ontario? And so like you have
Well, that's on the window sticker.
Sometimes you have to look at the VIN checker too.
I believe the factory's almost always on the window sticker. I'd have to check because I always see it.
I would definitely check because I asked him and he was like, oh my gosh, you might actually have to go look at, like, NHTSA has a VIN checker. So I don't know. But so there's stuff like that is a layer. There's, and so at Pickup Truck Talk, we have a forum on our website. And I posted this story to that. And I was just like, well, how important is it for you to, would you rather, playing the would you rather game, would you rather have more American jobs by having more parts sourced in America, or would you rather buy from an American nameplate even if it's built overseas because the money comes back to an American company? And there's some interesting conversations about that.
I know someone who wanted to buy an electric vehicle, and I don't know ultimately if she bought anything yet, but she was looking at the Mustang Mach-E. That kind of came down to that. Didn't buy it because it was built in Mexico.
Yeah.
Just a personal thing.
Yeah.
But and labor does not make the big money in Mexico.
Right. No, not
in
at
Canada
all.
and the U.S., you almost have parity.
Yeah.
But you don't with Mexico. So and for years and years and years too, BMW was famously underpaying people down there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a crime. Anyway,
it's fascinating. If you have never taken a look at the American-made index,
do that. Strongly
recommend.
We will link to that. But what it was, I don't remember what the link was.
You know what? If you just Google AMI and cars.com, you will find it.
Yeah, it came up for me right away today.
Yeah.
So, but we will link to it in our show notes, as we're now calling them.
Show notes.
You're on Twitter.
I am on Twitter.
All right.
And other things.
All right. Enough said.
You can find me on all of the things at Jill
my
Ciminillo.
headset off.
Okay, you can do
All right.
that. It kind of holds my hair back. But you can find me at Jill Ciminillo. And I use the hashtag #CarDuJour, but TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads, Post, all the things.
So you've been bothering me. Tweets, instant messages, emails. Tom, why don't you ever quiz me about Chrysler?
Yeah, no. Said no one ever, by the way. No one ever.
Tom, more Chrysler stuff.
Uh-huh.
So that's what we have today. Today's Chrysler today's quiz was it a Chrysler?
Today's quiz is?
Is. What did I say last?
Was.
I mean, the whole thing was a mess. But.
It really, really was. So by Chrysler, do you mean Chrysler the brand or Chrysler the parent company that is now Stellantis?
I now mean Chrysler the brand.
Okay.
So I need to know if these are Chrysler models sold by Chrysler the brand.
Okay.
Chrysler, of course, as you know, a parent company like Ford, so it is also a brand, and at one time
was
the Chrysler Corporation.
Yes.
And have I complained to you about this? At Stellantis, they refer to the people who head their brands as CEOs.
Yes, we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
It is very weird how they structure.
Because they're not separate corporations.
No.
Anyway, are you ready? Ready for the quiz?
Am I ever ready?
5 questions plus a bonus question. Question always related to the topic of the day.
Always.
All right, number 1.
And I need 3 out of 5 to win.
You need 3 out of 5 to win.
And I'm sorry I just kicked you.
That's all right.
That had no underpinnings.
No one needed to know that. I'm writhing in pain, but no one needed to know that.
I feel guilty that I kicked you, and there was no reason behind it, so I'm sorry.
All right, number 1.
Yes.
Was there ever a Chrysler Prowler?
I knew that was going to be one of your questions because the first thing I was like was was it only if
there's a trick question today, this is
it. Because there was the Plymouth Prowler and then Plymouth went away.
Yep.
And then did they carry that over under Chrysler is the question. And I knew you were going to ask this. This was literally. I'm going to say yes.
Yes, you're on the board. The Prowler was offered between 1998 and 2002, and from 2000 to 2002, it was a Chrysler.
Yeah.
After the Plymouth brand went away.
Yes, and you need to explain what the Prowler is because it's weird.
Yeah, designed by Tom Gale, legendary Chrysler designer Tom Gale. It was a little hot roddy looking thing.
Yeah.
With hardly any fenders. So they did what they could with the laws of the time.
Right.
But it looked a little bit like a little T-bucket roadster. Very cool. Powered by the 3.5-liter V6. Not so cool.
Yeah.
And there was a V8 concept car based on that, but that never happened. They didn't sell a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be very collectible at some point. They're
Probably.
not yet. Because people who bought them probably immediately thought they were collecting them.
Yeah, and probably did not drive them because you really don't see them on the road very much.
You do not.
That would be a great car spotter hashtag.
Yeah.
If anybody out there has seen one or has one, they should take a picture and send it.
I feel like I saw one recently.
Tweet it.
I'd have to check.
Exit.
All right, you have 1 point.
Exit. I'm sorry. Now I'm digressing on X Twitter again. Sorry.
Yep, you've become me.
Sorry. Yep.
You have 1 point. Fleetwood. Was there a Chrysler Fleetwood?
I don't even know what other brand that would have been. I mean, at first I thought it was like a Ford. Fleetwood is old.
Yes.
Say,
and it's old, and then it's older than you think.
yeah, I'm going to say no.
No, it was a Cadillac. Fleetwood was a coach builder back in the day. And for people who don't know what coach built cars were, companies like Lincoln and Fleetwood and Duesenberg used to build chassis for cars. And then you would have a coach builder build the body. So a lot of these cars were 100% unique. But Fleetwood was one of those builders. But it became a Cadillac. Fisher, the body company owned by General Motors, bought Fleetwood, used Fleetwood exclusively for Cadillacs for a long time, and then it became a Cadillac model between 77 and 96.
Okay.
So big old cars.
Okay.
With a lot of history. Airflow.
I know that
you have 2 points, by the way.
Woo! I know that they want to have an airflow. That they've had the concept car for like 5 years now.
There was a concept car.
And it's the Chrysler Airflow. And it's supposed to be electric. But you're asking if it was actually.
If there ever was a Chrysler Airflow model for sale to the public.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Beautiful car.
Okay.
Beautiful deco streamlined car from 1934 to 1937. There was also a DeSoto Airflow. Beautiful cars. They were a bomb. So Chrysler sold. It was Chrysler's premium car. They couldn't give them away. They were inline eights, beautiful cars, but they were just too ahead of their time. People want to look. I'll post a picture on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Beautiful car. You have 2 points. You need one more. LeBaron.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm like, I didn't even need to blink. So funny story there. I have a few minutes I can tell it. So when my mother was looking for a new car when we lived in Indiana, she was going to be the primary driver. She test drove a Chrysler LeBaron and a Chevrolet Beretta. And we all wanted the LeBaron because it was a convertible. You know, we were three young girls.
So that was based on the K car.
Yeah.
Those were the J cars, the Chrysler J cars. Beautiful.
Yeah, we all wanted that because it was a convertible, and like
They weren't good cars, but they were gorgeous.
No, but yeah, I mean, I was like 10 or 11, and I was just like, that would be so cool. And my mom ended up getting the Beretta GT, and loved it. So, but yeah, so that's why I knew it was a Chrysler, because we would go to my mom. We're like, "Hi, LeBaron, Mom, LeBaron." We were trying like the subliminal language thing.
For what it was, the Beretta GT with the V6, kind of fun to drive.
Oh, she loved
quick,
it.
Nimble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, build quality was terrible.
Yes,
but LeBaron was also a coach builder.
Okay.
Back in the day, and then in the early 70s, I think it was, when they were still building the Imperial. LeBaron was a trim level, and then from 77 to 95. the LeBarons that we're talking about here. They were mid-sized cars. Chrysler came out of the oil crisis only selling large cars, and they needed mid-sized cars badly.
Okay.
The Cordoba, the legendary Cordoba, the Ricardo Montalban Cordoba, was their first small car, but that was a coupe. The LeBarons came in with coupes and sedans and actually sold very well for them.
Yep.
All right, you have 3. You've won. LaSalle. Gee, our old LaSalle ran great.
Yeah, all I can think of is LaSalle Bank in Chicago, or LaSalle Street in Chicago. I have no recollection of LaSalle being a car whatsoever. I'm going to say no.
No. LaSalle was a Cadillac, sold between 27 and 40. One of the more successful entry-level lines during the Depression.
Okay.
Like Cadillac was able to sell LaSalles at a relatively premium price, but they were still discount relative to Cadillacs. Did well for them. They were also like legitimately cool, good-looking cars. So there you have it. You got 3. The bonus question should be very easy.
Okay.
I hope you're ready.
Because they're always super easy.
Yeah,
they're gimmies.
We were talking about Lake Michigan earlier.
Sure.
Per the website, permichigan.com.
Pure Michigan?
It's per.
How is it spelled?
P-E-R.
Interesting.
It wasn't pure Michigan, but per Michigan. I'm just going to go with typo. Let's go with typo. Per a website I went to today.
Because I'm like, their catchphrase is always pure Michigan.
No, it wasn't pure Michigan. It
Okay.
definitely wasn't part of the tourism thing.
Okay.
I'll check this out later.
Okay.
And I really won't. I'm not going to get back to you on this.
Thanks.
But yeah, typo.
Got it.
Per the website, whatever, which of the following is not a species of fish commonly found in Lake Michigan?
Okay.
Ready? You're like a game fisherman.
I haven't been fishing since I was a kid.
All right.
Yeah.
Smelt, crappie, lake herring, or the Gretsch white falcon?
Okay, so I've heard of the other 4 fish, except for the last one.
The Gretsch white falcon?
Yes. That sounds like a bird. I'm going with that.
You are correct. However, it's not a bird, it's a guitar.
Okay, I'm like, it sounds like a bird.
Nice job. You got 4 today.
All right. Well, yeah, no, I've heard of the other 4 fish, so...
There are actually some really common sounding things on here. The creepiest thing you can find in Lake Michigan is the lamprey.
Oh.
And knowing that that's there makes me never want to go in the water again. It is a creepy long eely thing with a lot of teeth that latches onto fish, drills into them. Oh, man, that's gross.
Imagine it latching onto your leg.
And I think that came in through the ocean, right? Isn't that a...
Could be, like, where it was somehow
an invasive
attached
species,
to,
yeah.
like, the bottom of a boat or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We only have a minute here. I've got a question for you.
All right.
I did one of my ridiculous non-scientific polls on Twitter.
Okay.
And we talked about Avanti on our spelling quiz.
Okay.
But I gave people 3 cars, 1963. Which one would they take if they were there in 1963?
Okay.
You need to tell me which one was most popular.
Okay.
The 63 Avanti, the 63 Corvette, or the 63 T-Bird?
I would love to say the 63 Corvette because that was the year of the split window, and that happens to be my favorite vehicle ever. But I feel like they didn't sell very many of those because of the split window and the rear visibility.
Well, that doesn't make them less desirable.
Well, it makes it very desirable now, just because it's so cool and rare. But I'm going to go with the Thunderbird.
No, it was the Corvette.
Oh,
2-1. It was actually
Okay.
it was actually a tie for second place between the Avanti and the T-Bird.
Interesting.
I can't seem to drum up Avanti love. And it may be that car is just getting old enough that it's slipping out of people's awareness.
Wasn't Avanti the one with the weird headlights? They were like kind of square or something.
Well, they had a square surround, but the headlights were round.
Okay.
And then there was something called the Avanti 2, which was a continuation vehicle long after Studebaker failed. They did something weird with the headlights too.
Got it.
And those are not considered nearly as cool or as collectible. But Avanti, the last Studebaker. Beautiful car. All right. Full show today.
Yeah.
Anything going on you want to talk about?
Actually, something that I'm going to be digging into because I find it fascinating. I noticed in the NHTSA, they send out a weekly recalls report. And
A lot of huge recalls lately.
But one that they came up was the Fisker Ocean is being recalled. And I'm just like, okay. So the question I want to have answered is, how do you fix that?
I don't know. And Henrik Fisker just sold his house to raise money. Is he selling his house to do the recall?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to this week and trying to figure out. And if I find an answer, I'm going to write a story about it.
Recalls are so expensive.
Yeah.
And I can't believe there's already a recall on the Fisker Ocean.
Yeah, all like 7,000 of them that have been sold are recalled. I think,
man.
yeah. I mean, the recall is 7,600 or something like that. And so I'm assuming that's the sum of vehicles
That's
that have been
probably
told.
everything.
Yeah.
And there's still 3,000 left unsold. You can buy one for $14,000.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would do that, because this recall is not going to happen.
Yeah, no. So I'm gonna dig into this a little bit. But like I said, if I find an answer, I will write a story and we'll get it posted on the Facebook page.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, that's a show. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you to Patrick Masterson of Cars.com for talking about the American-made index. Thank you, Jill, for just barely getting here on time. All right, thank you to producer Randy and the good folks here at TalkZone. Let's talk more about cars again
Next week.
Remember to check us out at consumerguide.com.
The Car Stuff Podcast is produced by J-Turn Media.
To advertise on the show, please drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.